Chapter 5. Mile after mile of that monotone of gloom. Then, with a start of bewilderment, the Earthman realized that the four lights in front had all disappeared. Looking back, he saw that the lamps which followed him had similarly vanished. About, before, and behind there was nothing but a solid tomb-like wall of darkness. Howard felt a strange disconcertment, together with the leaden, crushing return of his weariness. He went on with doubtful, slackening steps, following the right-hand wall with cautious fingers. After a while, he turned a sharp corner, but he did not recover the lost lights. There was a draughty darkness in the air, an odor of stone and mineral, such as he had not met heretofore in the Maufa-lined caverns. He began to wonder if he had somehow gone astray. There might have been other branchings of the tunnel which he had missed in his groping. In a blind surge of alarm, he started to run and crashed headlong against the angular wall of another turn in the passage. Half stunned, he picked himself up. He hardly knew, henceforth, whether he was maintaining the original course of his flight or was doubling on his own steps. For aught that he could tell, he might be lost beyond all redirection in a cross-labyrinth of caverns. He stumbled and staggered along, colliding many times with the tunnel's sides, which seemed to have closed in upon him and to have grown rough with flinty projections. The draught in his face grew stronger, with a smell of water. Presently, the blindfold darkness before him melted into a chill bluish glimmering, which revealed the rugate walls and boulder-flanged roof of the natural passage he was following. He came out in a huge chamber-like cave of some marble-pallid stone with twisted columnar forms. The glimmering, he saw, was a kind of phosphorescence emitted by certain vegetable growths, probably of the thallophytic nature, which rose in thick clusters from the floor, attaining the height of a tall man. They were flabby and fulsome-looking, with abortive branches and pendulous, fruit-shaped nodes of etiolated purple along their puffy whitish-blue stems. The phosphorescence, which issued equally from all portions of these plants, served to light the gloom for some distance around, and brought out dimly the columnaded character of the cavern's further walls. Howard saw, as he passed among them, that the plants were rootless. It seemed that they would topple at a touch, but happening to stumble against one of the clumps, he found that they supported his weight with resilient solidity. No doubt they were attached firmly by some sort of suction to the smooth stone. In the middle of the cave, behind a lofty fringing of these luminous fungi, he discovered a pool of water, fed by a thin trickle that descended through the gloom from a high vault that the phosphorescence could not illumine. Impelled by a sudden, furious thirst, he slid back the Maufa hood and drank recklessly, though the fluid was sharp and bitter with strange minerals. Then, with the ravening hunger of one who has not eaten for days, he began to eye the pear-shaped nodes of the tall thallophytes. He broke one of them from its parent stem, tore off the glimmering rind, and found that it was filled with a meaty pulp. A savorous, peppery odor tempted him to taste the pulp. It was not unpleasant, and forgetting all caution, possibly he had become a little mad from his extra-human ordeals, he devoured the stuff in hasty mouthfuls. The node must have contained a narcotic principle, for almost immediately he was overpowered by an insuperable drowsiness. He fell back and lay where he had fallen in a deep sodden sopor without dreams, for a length of time which, as far as he could know, might have been the interim of death between two lives. He awoke with violent nausea, a racking headache, and a feeling of hopeless, irredeemable confusion. He drank again from the bitter pool, and then began to hunt with cloudy senses and feeble, uncertain steps for another exit than the tunnel by which he had entered. His mind was dull and heavily drugged, as if from the lingering of the unknown narcotic, and he could formulate no conscious plan of action, but was led only by an animal-like impulse of flight. He discovered a second opening, low and fanged with broken-off pillar formations, in the opposite wall of the cavern. It was filled with Stygian darkness, and before entering it, he tore a lumpy branch from one of the phosphorescent fungi to serve him in lieu of other light. His subsequent wanderings were nightmarish and interminable. He seemed to have gotten into some tremendous maze of natural caverns, varying greatly in size and intersecting each other in a bewildering honeycomb fashion. An underworld that lay beyond the metal-insulated realm of the Uomnes. There were long, tediously winding tunnels that went down into Cimmerian depth, or climbed at acclivitous angles. There were straight cubbyholes dripping with unknown liquid ores, through which he crawled like a lizard on his belly, and Dantean gulfs that he skirted on slippery, perilous broken ledges, hearing far below him the sullen sigh or the weirdly booming roar of submercution waters. For a while, his way led mainly downward, as if he were plunging to the bowels of the planet. The air became warmer and more humid. He came at last to the sheer brink of an incommensurable abyss, where noctilucent fungi, faster than any he had yet seen, grew tall as giant trees along the precipice that he followed for miles. They were like fantastic monolithic tapirs, but their luminosity failed to reveal the giddy depth above and beneath. He met none of the Uomnes in this inexhaustible world of night and silence. But after he had rounded the great gulf and had started to reascend in smaller caverns, he began to encounter, at intervals, certain blind, white, repulsive creatures the size of an overgrown rat, but without even the rudiments of tail or legs. In his demoralized condition of mind and body, he felt a primitive fear of these things, rather than a mere repugnance which their aspect would normally have aroused. However, they were non-aggressive, and shrank sluggishly away from him. Once he trod inadvertently on one of the creatures, and leapt away, howling with fright when it squirmed nauseously beneath his heel. Finding he had crushed its head, he took courage, and began to belabor the flopping abnormality with the metal rod which he still carried. He mashed it into an oozy pulp, a pulp that still quivered with life. And then, overcome by bestial, atavistic hunger, and forgetting all the painfully acquired prejudices of civilized man, he knelt down and devoured the pulp with shameless greed. Afterwards, replete, he stretched himself out and slept for many hours.